Are
That
you
should be
ready?
start. Yes, I am. It's working right now. All right.
Okay. Welcome. We're a little late, but that's okay.
20 minutes, actually 25 minutes late, so we'll make it up for lost time right here, right now, as you can see, folks. Yeah, it's been a while. I know there was these little moments where you yeah, get caught up in some sort of stuff you had to do at the last minute here, and that's what happens with me a lot around here in this place here. This often explains why I'm often late at times when it comes to doing programs like these. So my apologies for everybody who was waiting online for this episode 8 of our music memories here. And I guess we're covering the scene, the rock and roll scene between the day the music died and the Fab Four's arrival to the states here.
Yeah, and some
And
of the stuff we'll talk about will actually bleed on into that, but that's okay.
yeah, because from what I understand, a lot of critics and a lot of writers have presented it. The scene between those two scenarios wasn't all that pumped up to beat, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was. I can't even think of a word to describe it. But
Lame.
yeah, that's probably a pretty accurate. There were a few good songs here and there, but a lot of times it was just stuff.
Mostly one name acts like Fabian or this person or that person here, but it was. I understand one writer quoted as saying they had no backbone to to themselves or their personality or to their material there.
Yeah, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, because as you know, the day the music died, was on the February 1959. We lost Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper J.P. Richardson, and of course Richie Valens, who is still regarded as one of the first major Latino rock stars out there to make it big with Donna, La Bamba, and of course, one of my personal favorites, Ooh My Head, which, as we know, Led Zeppelin covered under a different title for their record, Physical Graffiti. And we explained the whole scenario, how that was set up. They just did their version, and they, at the time, gave half credit to the songwriting to Mrs. Valens, who was Richie Valens' mother at that time. So I guess they figured at that time, since Richie ain't around, they're probably gonna give some of that money to his mom there.
Yeah, yeah. Despite the fact that a lot of the music was kind of
And I
lame,
guess of course,
there was
mhm.
some good stuff in there to speak of. I mean,
All right,
of course, a lot of it bled on into the invasion, but
the
it was
British
American
invasion.
groups. Yeah, but it was American groups.
The Four Seasons was one of them.
Yeah,
Absolutely, Frankie Valli and his boys. Which, by the way, I guess Frankie Valli is still performing today. I understand.
probably so. Probably so.
I
I
think he had
honestly
a.
don't know that.
Did he have a stint with the Sopranos? If I am correct, I
I
remember reading that in a
saw The
magazine.
Sopranos, but I don't remember him in there.
The only one I remember other than Little Steven Van Zandt from the Springsteen's Eastery Band was in there for a couple of times there.
Yeah,
But I think he had some sort of a role in some TV series that someone related to the mafia, if I'm correct. If I'm wrong about this, feel free to correct me. You know,
I honestly don't know that.
I'll probably have to look it up to confirm it. To
Yeah.
find out for sure.
Okay. I think we mentioned Dion, but there was Dion who had did A Teenager in Love, Run Around
Yeah.
Sue, Don't
Yep.
Pity Me. Uh,
Yes.
Abraham Martin and John, which actually was in the late 60's. In fact, it might have
Yes.
even been in the 70's.
That's right.
And then, of course, we had some people that actually only did one song I know of. I
Hmm.
guess they're technically one hit wonders, which that's going to get its own show later. But I'm going to mention them here anyway. You had the Tokens who did uh, Lion Sleeps Tonight. Paul and Paula did Hey Paula.
Yep. Hmm.
The Shirelles, Soldier Boy.
Yes, right.
Brenda Lee, I'm Sorry.
Oh yeah. I remember hearing about Brandy Lee many years back. She was the one. Wasn't she the one who did? It's no that. I think it's my party and I
Oh, that's
cry if I
Leslie
want.
Gore, and I'm going to
Oh
get to
yes,
her.
thank you. I get the two mixed up at times.
Oh, I'm going to get to her.
Absolutely, yeah.
Then we mentioned Del Shannon before.
I think we did, yeah. Del Shannon, who did his song "Runaway," who, as I mentioned last week, was a good primer to replace the late Roy Orbison in the Traveling Wilburys at one
Right.
point. But
He also
sadly,
did. He also did Handyman.
yeah.
Keep
Who also
Searching.
who also came back in 1981 with an album called "Drop and Down and Get Me," which was produced by Tom Petty.
Yeah. He did The Stranger in Town. Hats
Yeah,
Off to Larry.
that's right. And of course, "Runaway" would later become the theme song for the short-lived Michael Mann drama series Crime Story, around which came out at the same time Miami Vice was fully functioning,
Yeah.
and it would star a well-known actor we know who later appear on the original Law and Order. Dennis Farina, I guess his last name is pronounced.
That sounds right, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was him. I remember him precisely there.
Okay, you mentioned Leslie Gore.
Yes.
It's My Party. Judy's Turn to Cry. Uh, can't read my own writing.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
and one really important song during that period of time because it's like a girl anthem, but it made a lot of sense was You Don't Own Me.
Ah, which was a kind of like a women's liberation anthem during that time, the period.
Yeah, and that was actually a pretty good song.
Because a lot of that time, women were often considered, still considered second class to the men.
Yeah. Then she did one called She's a Fool.
Hmm.
Uh, That's the Way Boys Are. Maybe I Know. Look of Love. Sunshine, Lollipops, and Rainbows, which was an incredibly short song. I think it was only like
Hmm.
a minute 30.
Yeah.
And California Nights, which she did that one in the original Batman with Adam West when she was playing one of the uh, Catwoman's kitty cats or whatever they were
Oh,
called.
really? That's
Yeah,
something there.
and
You got to get Eartha Kitt her due because that girl she did when she portrayed that role was still remains iconic to this day.
yeah.
Next to the other Catwoman, Lee Whitmer. What's her name? What's her name?
Well, Lee Merriweather did it in the movie, but the
Mhm.
original Catwoman in that series was Julie Newmar.
Julie Newmar. That's right. I'm thinking the title, that one title that starred Wesley Snipes and Patrick Swayze as cross dressers, drag queens.
Yeah, the thing I liked about Julie Newmar is she had the physique that she resembled a cat. I mean, she was
Hmm.
tall, sleek, and just absolutely just slithered everywhere she went.
That's
Uh,
right. Yeah. So
she
she
made a
lived up to
very
that.
good Catwoman because of that. Actually, of the Catwoman, she's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I know. I would say so as well because well, we Lee Mayweather also did a good job as well there.
Yes, she did actually.
Hmm.
And then we go to the Four Seasons,
Oh
and we
yeah,
can
Frank.
start with Sherry, Big
Hmm.
Girls Don't Cry,
Yep.
Walk Like a Man. I'm gonna have to learn how to write better. Candy Girl,
And a couple others there, and he still
Stay,
continued on.
Don't Go Away,
Yeah,
Peanuts, Ragdoll, which actually was my favorite by them, and Silence is Golden, which a lot of other
that's right.
people did too.
And
Say,
you got to give it up to Frankie and the boys because not only did they were able to move past the 60's and to do a couple other songs throughout '70s as well. Remember that song "Who Loves You" from I guess in
Right, right,
1975 or something like that. And of course, not forget Valley's one of his biggest solo hits, the song "Grease" for the movie of the same name, written
right.
by Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Then you had Big
still.
Man in Town.
Hmm.
Uh, couple of Save It For Me. Uh, Bye Bye Baby.
Uh huh.
Don't Think Twice. It's All Right. Which one they released it? They released it as The Wonder Who because he did that really high. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
the words.
Because I think Valley would probably be credited as one of the best high pitched male singers out there because of those earlier hits like Sherry and others, or
Yeah,
Walk Like a Man. Because back then it was not that big. It wasn't that. It was very rarely that male singers could reach a high pitch with their voices like that.
and stay in pitch because that was the
Hmm.
best part was he actually stayed in pitch when he did that. He didn't wander off.
Yeah, and up until so if it's to say that possibly Frankie Valli was the original Rob Halford
Yeah,
or the original Ian Gillan from Deep Purple, because those singers were able to stay in high pitch when they went up to that octave there.
yeah, yeah. And then when Frankie Valli left, the Four Seasons, I don't know if they added another season or not, did a song called December 1983 that was
Well, what a
reasonably
night!
big. Yeah, oh, what a night,
Yeah,
exactly.
that was big. That was. I remember that came out in the 1970s as well. I remember hearing the original. In fact, there was this other version by an R&B group called Change. It's from an album they put out called Sharing Your Love. They did their version up there.
Right.
And I remember hearing it was pretty damn good, when you think about it.
Yeah. And then we moved into the Kingsmen because Louie Louie actually came out in 1962, I believe, or
Yeah,
63.
and oh gosh, the shit that went down with this song is still talked about to this day.
Well, they actually launched an FBI investigation into
I
that
remember,
song.
yes, because they wanted to know it was actually explicit lyrics into that song,
And then they
which I,
determined that it was the song was fine. The guy was just drunk out of his mind when he sang it
mhm.
and slurred all his words and they were hard to understand.
Yeah, that is true there. And of course, that song's popularity would later be regenerized when it was featured in National Lampoon's Animal House. I remember seeing the clip on the old MTV, where the Kings were actually at this frat party. Everyone was dressed in all these tanga and all that shit,
Yeah.
like the movie, and they're performing Louie Louie, and everybody was just bouncing, singing along, going crazy, having a good old time there. It's like, damn.
Yeah, and when we get to our cover show, there's at least two covers I'm aware of
Hmm.
that, and I'm sure there's more.
I am. I think a lot of people did their versions, including Motorhead for at one point.
Yeah, I remember the Kinks did a version of that song,
Yep.
and incredibly enough, Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Oh yeah. Which is another interesting group we got to get to
Oh, we will.
because American rock and roll came out with their own Fat Four type of style of rock and roll as well.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they also did little a version of Little Latin Loopy Loo,
Wow.
which lots of groups did that one. Then they did a fun song called Jolly Green Giant.
Hmm.
You remember that one?
I think I remember hearing that some time ago, but I'm not too sure when there. So,
They did Killer Joe, The Climb,
but
and Money.
yeah. And it's kind of funny is that when I think of Jolly Green Giant, I think about the vegetable company. It's for yo
Well,
ho ho.
that's what the song's about, actually.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah.
So
So,
that figure's been around way before we were all born, I guess you could say there.
yeah,
Wow.
but that's an interesting song if you ever want to hear an interesting song.
Wow,
I mean, I'm not going to say it's a great song, but it's not a bad song.
that's right. I see. Yeah.
And then I've got Jimmy Rogers. Was it Jimmy Rogers?
Hmm.
Did Honeycomb and Kisses Sweeter Than Wine, which were big.
That's right.
Then you got the Kingston Trio, which you mentioned some time back.
Oh
But
yeah, I remember Tom Dooley, Badman's Blunder, and a couple others there. My dad had this one record from him called "Sing Along with the Kingston Trio."
wonder if Greenback Dollar was on there.
I don't remember. I don't have the album with me, but it's been so long, man.
And that's an interesting song too, actually,
Yeah, yeah,
because that was one that, depending on where it was played, there's a verse in there about he don't give a damn about a greenback dollar. But in some places, when they played it, they went ooh over the dam. So you hear
yeah,
I don't give a ooh about a greenback a dollar.
yeah. And by the way, to interrupt there, not famous in my chat says we should do a song about misinterpretations about song. He just learned about the meaning behind the Cranberries' "Zombie," which he have never known. Definitely, we got to look into that. That's probably one of our
Oh
big,
yeah,
absolutely, sometime, probably on a Monday or something like that, after
yeah,
our recap and preview there.
yeah. Because I know there's a lot of famous ones. The most famous one I remember is Purple Haze.
I know.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Yeah. It turns out there was "Excuse Me While I Kiss the Sky" there. So,
Exactly, but a lot of
but that
people
was,
misheard that.
I know. I was one of them.
Yeah, I kind of heard it and said, no, that can't be right.
I know. It's like a pretty odd. I figured the guy must have been so zoned out on the drugs that he probably would kiss anything in sight, including trees, lampposts, and everything.
And of course, one of the big folk groups that started this time was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yep.
They did songs like For Loving Me, which is a Gordon Lightfoot song,
Yes. And
Early Morning Rain, which is a Gordon Lightfoot song.
Puff the Magic Dragon,
That was their biggie.
a kid's song there. And a lot of people misinterpreted that as in Puff Puff get high, blah blah blah, that kind of bullshit there.
Yeah, which you can kind of make that argument, but they always claimed that it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, they always say that all the time. But then again, I remember Jefferson Airplane when they got back together in '89. They had to do a lot of explaining. I kind of like they were in this. I know Grace Slick was in this apologetic mode whenever she spoke about White Lion. I mean White
White
Rabbit
Rabbit, yeah.
back then. Yes, because she was like, oh, they were so stoned. They didn't really think that we were thinking at that time. They were saying things like, oh, they were stoned. They wasn't really thinking about at that period when they wrote the song because at that time around the '80s, drugs like still considered it was still part of the "Just Say No" campaign that Nancy Reagan had started around that time there.
Yeah, but it sounds like a lot of it's about Alice in Wonderland, which
Yeah, there was a lot of reference to that. One pill makes you small, one pig makes you tall. That's
yeah,
basically the whole idea. And you got to remember, a lot of Alice in Wonderland, the stories had a few Alice taking all this, taking all that. So there you go. Don't blame the airplane, blame the person who wrote Alice in Wonderland. There you go.
yeah, and actually they did other things like Too Much and Nothing. Um, I'm going to start writing in English. Leaving on a Jet Plane.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Which I guess Arlo Guthrie did his version of, if I'm correct.
no, that was
No,
John Denver.
okay, that's
I
right.
think John
I'm
Denver
correct.
actually wrote the song.
All right, there we go. And this is before John Denver became a household name himself, what I
Yeah, it was
understand.
it was early. He did it real early.
Very early. Wow, very early. So the folk scene at that time, along with Bob Dylan, the Kingston Trio, the Smothers Brothers, that was really starting to kick in, I understand.
Yeah, and they also did I Dig Rock and Roll Music, which
Hmm.
was interesting because there's a verse in the middle of that thing that I didn't really know he was speaking words till I listened to it closely, and that was the thing about uh, you don't, but I don't know exactly how I did it, but it was real hard to understand what he was saying. Then I realized,
Mm.
oh
Oh,
wait, he's singing.
oh wow.
But that's an interesting song.
Oh, oh wow, man. That's a trip to listen to.
And then yeah,
Usually when we do that, when
well,
we
he's
make that
saying
noise,
words,
it's
but
usually
the way he's saying them, you don't realize it until you listen real close. But that's interesting because actually, with the group I was in, we covered that song too. That's how I figured
oh
that one
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Uh,
Like
then
I
they did.
like I said, like I said, when we usually hear when people say things, it's usually mocking someone who can't talk straight.
Right. Yeah, and they did Dylan covers too. For example,
All right.
blowing in the wind. They
Yes, I
did
remember that.
Lemon Tree, which is I think a Trini Lopez song,
Yeah.
and then Tellin' on the Mountain. I don't remember who the original was on that one.
Who knows, Sam? If it's, I should say this. This is when Bob Dylan really started. This is when he started before the Beatles, I understand, or after, I
Yeah,
think.
he started before the Beatles, and he was
Okay.
pure folk in the beginning.
Yes, I remember. I had his greatest hits album, and this is before he started using his backup band, which would later be known as the band
Right,
here afterwards. And
right.
of course, he would do "Blowing in the Wind," all those. I
It's
guess a
all over
couple
now.
other
I believe.
songs.
Well, we'll do a Dylan
Yes,
episode probably.
just like a woman there.
Yeah, we'll probably do a Dylan episode because there's enough there to do it. Then they also did Stew Ball, Don't Think
Yeah,
Twice, It's All Right, Freight Train. I mean, they covered lots of stuff. And you
yeah,
mentioned Puff the Magic Dragon,
yeah.
500 Miles. Sorry, I'm
It's
having a
kind of. I
hard
think
time reading my
only one.
writing.
I remember. Understand. There's still are the members of Peter Paul Mary still around performing?
I honestly can't answer that question. I don't know.
Hmm.
I
That's
haven't. I would think that if any of them died, that we would know it. But then again, sometimes you don't find out until
later on.
later on. You look them up, and it's like, oh, when they die, 4 years
I'm looking
ago.
at one couple American band, a couple of them I remember. Yes, let's say according to this, Mary Travers died in Connecticut after battling leukemia in 2009.
Oh, actually,
Um,
I remember that now.
yes, and I guess who's still living? I guess let me look it up here. Let's see, Paul Stuckey, he's still around, and of course, Peter Yarrow, he's still around as well. It's just Mary
Wow,
Travers who is deceased.
wow.
Yeah,
But that was a group that I kind of like to listen to when I felt mellow.
yeah,
They
yeah.
were
And he
fun to
had
listen
lots
to.
of and he had lots of albums as well. You should
Oh
take
yeah,
it as well.
oh yeah. They definitely did that. Then you had actually, I think Woody Guthrie was dead by here.
I think so. Yeah,
And
probably the iconic Woody Guthrie.
yeah, I don't think Arlo hit till the 60s, mid 60s, late 60s.
Hmm.
And we'll cover him when we get into the.
Arlo Guthrie, yes. When did the disciples of the Woody Guthrie the songwriting school there?
Yeah, of course, most people, well, I take it back, most people probably don't remember, but his really big thing was Alice's Restaurant Massacre.
Oh man, we all knew that though. That's one of his most recognizable tunes. Every Thanksgiving Day, all the radio stations will be playing that song in the morning, afternoon, at night.
Yeah, that was kind of hard to play because it was like 18 minutes.
Yeah, it was, but and plus he would interpret a lot of funny stories along with it, as well as how he's able to avoid the draft and stuff there.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a fun song to listen to. If I was going to make a recommendation on Arlo Guthrie, he had
Yeah,
several others, but that's one that I would definitely make a recommendation for.
yeah. Obviously, when I was still, and I guess it's still played on. I guess classic rock stations often still play that track when it comes to on when it's on Thanksgiving Day because that since the whole story
Yeah, because
takes
it's about
place
a
on
Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving.
story.
Yeah,
And you know, it's funny because I can't really think of many Thanksgiving songs, but that one is. I remember. Yeah, that one would qualify.
I know. I know that's probably one of the most iconic. Because you're right. Other than that, I remember there was a couple of comic books, supporting USA for Africa, doing what was called a Thanksgiving gift. Sending checks and money orders to USA for Africa at the time when Feed the World was the main thing at that time.
Yeah,
Let's feed all these other help feed all these other countries here. Well, that was one of the big things around that time.
yeah, I remember that. That's one of those. I guess in a sense a super group, but it wasn't really the true definition of a super group.
Yeah,
Not like Blind Faith or something like that.
yeah, yeah. That's true as well. There,
Which
or
actually
later.
technically Cream was a super group.
Well, we already know Eric Clapton, and I guess Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce had some were part of other group. I didn't really know about that story there.
Well, Jack Bruce at one time was a member of the Manfred Mann group,
Oh
the
yeah,
earlier one, and I don't remember for sure on Ginger Baker. Was he the one in Atomic Rooster? No, that was Carl Palmer, wasn't it?
yeah, that's correct. Yes,
Okay, I knew one of them was in Atomic Rooster.
yeah, that would be Carl Palmer from ELP, Emerson Lake and Palmer.
Which
But
I'm going to bet that about 90% of people that listen to this won't know who Atomic Rooster is.
yeah, I remember hearing the name ages back in the magazine. I'd be out there to check out any of their music myself, to be exact.
Yeah, they had some good stuff. I think they had something like six. They're another one of those groups that were big in Britain, but never made it over here. And there
I
was a
know.
ton of those. And when we talk about the British invasion, we might cover one or two of those.
Absolutely, because there was so many to select from.
Yeah, because I know one group that comes to mind is Status Quo. They had a big hit here in America called Pictures of Matchstick Men, and then they disappeared. But they released something like 20 albums in Britain that were huge hits, and they were very popular in Britain.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I remember hearing about. I remember seeing performing this thing called on the VH1 Classic when it was still called that, called "Rockin' All Over the World" at the Download Festival, and people were just shouting along with the lyrics there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm wondering if that's kind of a show that we should think about is big groups elsewhere, but not so big here. Of course, there aren't
Definitely,
that many
we
of
got
them.
we got to take a look at that sometime soon.
Yeah,
Which probably I'm thinking possibly on our when we do our recap and previews, we could discuss these ranges so that way they don't interfere with our series here of music memories here. Where
right,
we
right.
would discuss between what's goes on in the 60s, 70s, and elsewhere. But I'm thinking possibly we could probably do that on
Yeah,
Mondays. That would be a better option
yeah.
for us.
Because if we don't do something on Mondays, that show's going to be way too short.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely we got our option spelled out right there, folks. We definitely next Monday we should probably talk about bands that have only had one hit song, but they were a lot more popular in the elsewhere.
Yeah, which actually doesn't. It might be the definition of a one-hit wonder here in America,
Yeah,
which actually that's a show I'd like to do because there were a lot of those.
I am.
But
One of the one of the biggest ones of all, "When a Man Loves a Woman" by the late Percy Sledge.
yeah, I don't think he really did anything else after that.
I know. It's like, what the heck? Did he release any other albums? Did he ever had other hits there? Just that one song? It's like, holy cow, dude.
Yeah, and especially considering that's a pretty good song. That's what really gets me is when it's a pretty good song and yet nothing.
I know.
Although
It's
there are
like,
other groups that had one big hit and followed up with 4 or 5 others that just bubbled around and didn't really do anything.
I know.
But we'll kind of talk about that in the one hit
One of the
wonders.
most, it's kind of most, the ironic, funniest of all one-hit wonders by band that's still carried on afterwards would have to be the Grateful Dead. You
Yeah,
you
but
remember the song "Touch a Grave" from '87? That was a humongous hit on the charts there, and that was the only real big hit other than the song "Trucking." And I don't know how high that track peaked around the year that it was released, but
well, I guess in a sense you'd have had to been a Deadhead because they did a lot of material and a lot of it was pretty good.
yeah, I wasn't really that much of a Deadhead on that thing, but I was more still in the I was in my own thing there. But when you look at it, the Dead still continue to tour and perform, release records here after, up until Jerry's death in '95.
Right. Yeah, well, like I said, they started in 1968 or 9, I forget which,
Oh,
and they released probably 40 albums.
I know.
And I'm reasonably familiar with them. And there will be a time that I'd kind of like to talk about them when we get into the underground, because they
Yes,
were a big, 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 big part of the
cult,
underground prog.
one of the biggest cult following bands out there,
Yeah,
needless to say. And it still attracts legions of fans to this day, even though it's now called Dead and Company, because it couldn't continue as the Grateful Dead after Jerry's death. So,
yeah. But I was a fan of the Grateful Dead. I wasn't a Deadhead, but I liked a lot of their stuff. I mean, when we get there, I'm going to kind of touch on songs. Say, you need to hear this. You need to hear this, because they were another one of those groups that dabbled in all sorts of things. They actually have an album that sounds country,
mm,
called "Working Man's Dead." About half the
uh-huh.
songs on it, they're using
Oh,
steel guitars and stuff like that, and you're going,
Lap Steel.
yeah, you're going, is this a country band? But it's not.
It's the Grateful Dead, they experimented a little bit there.
Oh, and that was the thing that was cool about them. They tried stuff. They're largely known as a jam band for the most
Yeah,
part, because they improvised and they played long songs.
that's true. Yeah. And
But
that of course that would inspire all the other jam bands in the 1990s, like the Spin Doctors and Blues Traveler.
right, yeah, because jam bands got to be a pretty big thing for a while. There were a lot of them. In a sense,
I
all the
know.
Allman Brothers were kind of a jam band.
Mm.
I'm one of those people that I don't know if you've ever heard it, but on the Eat a Peach album is a song called uh, "There Is a Mountain." That's about a 35-minute jam session,
Oh
instrumental,
wow.
and you get to hear Dickie Betts and Dwayne Allman just go.
Yep, that's true there.
So, and we'll spend some time on the Allman Brothers too.
Yeah, we got said that when we covered the '70s rock scene there. It's kind of funny, and we're kind of like a lot of these artists, like Fabian, are no longer around. I understand they're no longer
Right.
functioning. Either they have passed on, or they just were left the music scene and doing other or still continue to do shows at either Vegas or cabaret shows or something like that. But I know Dion is still in functioning. I know he released a couple comeback albums, I guess, in the '80s or early '90s. From what I understand there.
Yeah, it's ironic because he did a lot of things in the early '60s, but his
Yeah,
biggest hit was probably that Abraham Martin and John.
yeah. It's kind of fun. Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny. Like when you read, even though some of these acts that we have spoke of had some good hits there. What do you say to the people out there that who I mentioned who said that some of these rock acts didn't have no damn backbone, they didn't have no thrust into their music, like Valence, Holly, Bill Haley, and all the others before them. What would you say to those people? Because there were a lot of these songs from them that you did appreciate them.
Yeah, in the early '50s, a lot of those songs you could appreciate and they were good. It's when you got into that little period of time in the early 60s before the Beatles came that was kind of like, there's not a lot here. Oh, another song I forgot to mention because it was actually pretty big and I kind of liked it was Jimmy Gilmer
Yes.
did one called Sugar Shack,
Oh.
which,
Now I've heard that name many times before. It could be referred to a some sort of a nightclub or underground club
yeah,
there.
supposedly it
I
was a
know it.
coffee house.
Oh yeah.
But if you get a chance, you need to look that up, play it because it's kind of a nice little tune to listen to. Uh,
Yes.
Nancy Sinatra also did a song called Sugar Shack, but it was a totally different
Oh.
song.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, there is a rule here. You could have two songs with the same title. Let that be known there.
Yeah, it's not like you got to mark it on the title.
Yeah,
Yeah, other groups will use it.
exactly.
You might think, oh, that's their version of the song, and a lot of times you listen to it, it's like, that's
No,
not
it
the
is
same
not.
song.
I thought the same thing when the band Incubus had a song called "Wish You Were Here." I thought it was the Pink Floyd cover, but it was like totally something different, just the same title.
Yeah, and Alice Cooper actually had a song called Wish You Were Here that was totally different.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like you said, it's you don't have a market on the title. It's maybe the song, but not the title.
yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's unless you kind of misspelled the words a little bit there.
Yeah,
I know a
absolutely.
band called Slade, and there was this glam rock band out of England called Slade that did that with a lot of their titles.
Yeah, the Mama, we're all crazy now. It's spelled crazy A-Z-Z-Z or
And
C-R-A-Z-E-E.
of course, we cannot forget, "Come On, Feel the Noise," which quite right made took to number one in '83.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's one of the things, and a little bit of a future show that
yeah,
will be interesting is I want to do good covers of songs from the 60s and before, and then another one of bad covers from the
uh,
songs of the 60s and before. 'Cause I
yeah. We
think
got
we
to
can
look
cover
into
both of
that there.
those pretty good.
Then we got to look into that kind of stuff there because I remember hearing some bad covers of songs that we have known for a long time ago.
Yeah, well, one
What
that
about
comes to
this?
mind for me is I loved Behind Blue Eyes by The Who,
Yeah.
but I heard the Limp Bizkit version. I go,
Oh
what the
God,
heck is this?
that was an atrocity its own self. First of all, they forgot the whatever happened. They forgot the bridge there where the with my fist clenches, crack it open, and they forgot that part.
Yeah, they
Why did
just
they
did
do
the
that?
yeah they just did the beginning and
The
end and skipped the
yeah
middle.
yeah exactly. What the fuck were those idiots thinking? That to me was one of the most atrocious things ever to do to a classic song. Right there, man.
Well, we'll need to mention that when we get to bad covers.
I know. We have definitely. That's already on my list. So that's on my top spot right there, man.
Yeah, I don't think it gets much worse.
Oh God.
Well, I'm
So
sure it
if
does, but we just hadn't discovered it yet.
I know if Keith Moon was still around, he'd be bashing his drum kick over Fred Durst's head and the rest of those guys.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like I said. That's among the things I want to talk about later is
Yes.
good covers and bad covers, and I also want to cover one-hit wonders, and I'd like to
Yeah.
cover novelty songs because that could be fun.
Oh yeah. I say we do all this on the upcoming Monday episodes after our preview and recap of what went on our shows and with this YouTube community as well. There.
Yeah, that'll give us something other than just talking about, oh, this is what we
Well,
did, this is what we're going to do,
yeah.
because that's about a 5 minute spiel.
I know. So we could also cover with the bullshit that goes on at this show or that show. We could talk about that and definitely talk about the subjects we discussed a moment ago. One hit wonders to atrocious cover tunes.
Yeah, and good ones, because there are some good ones out there.
Yeah, it's true. I remember this one called. You remember the song "Don't Make Me Over"?
Doesn't sound familiar.
I think it may have. Let's see. Don't make me over. I think wasn't that a 1960s song? Let me look it up here, because I'm thinking possibly. Let's see. Because I remember there was this song I remember hearing at the place called the Shelter in downtown Detroit. Don't Make Me Over song. Yes. Um, it was a song originally done by Dionne Warwick. It
Mm.
was later covered by the singer named Sybil. I remember hearing the Sybil version there. Came out in 1963. And of course, there was other recordings of this song by the cast of Glee in 2009,
Oh,
Jennifer Warnes from 1979, um, Julia Julia Holter in 2004 for 2014. I meant to say. Let me see here. Come on, come on. How much is How much is? Of course, the Sybil version that I mentioned the moments ago. Right. A little mess up here on my thing there. One of these plugs here that need to be checked here. One of my USB cables, I think, and there we go. All right, so this is probably to sum up. The music scene at that time was at a standstill.
and it was starting to blow up big time.
Yes, it would blow up a bigger big time with the Beatles arriving in America to appear on the Ed Sullivan Show.
And
We've
right
been hearing
behind
about,
them, dozens of British groups.
yeah, it's like the Yardbirds, the Rolling Stones, the Kings, all the Hermits,
The
all
Who.
those acts, the Who, yes. You know, it fits to say that the British helped us out along the way because at that time we were still because as you know what happened in Dallas in November of 1963, that was one of the big disappointments of that period there.
Oh, yeah.
It's still probably one of the most talked about moments because to this day there's still speculation that Lee Harvey Oswald, my bad there, didn't actually pull the trigger, but there was basically possibly a government conspiracy or Cuban's conspiracy or something like that.
Yeah, I was a junior in high school, or junior in high school. I was in junior high school when that happened.
Wow, I wasn't even born at that time. I learned about it on the TV and a history class at school there a few times there, and I remember one time CBS, the network there, they broadcasted the entire program of Walter Cronkite, you know, rebroadcasting the entire news footage of what happened on that fatal day there.
Yeah, but that a lot of the music at that time started, like I said, exploding because you had, excuse me, the
You know,
British, and then you had America's Answer, then you had some of the bigger folk ones.
yeah.
Yeah,
You okay there?
yeah. I was just for some reason I had the hiccups,
Oh,
and then on Thursday we're going to start with the Beatles and probably only be able to cover up to Sergeant Pepper. I'm thinking, but who
oh yeah,
knows? We'll just start and see how far it goes.
and definitely we got to. So I'm looking forward to doing this because damn, it was. I could tell you a lot of memories involving the Beatles growing up. I can tell you
Yeah.
that.
And what, as far as the music goes, what I'm thinking we cover is their American albums because at that time, the American version of the album and the British version of the album were usually different.
Hey,
And
Warren, you know what? I got to suggest this, and this is a direct message to Capitol Records. Start reissuing the U.S. versions of these albums. I mean, what about
well,
you've
actually,
been
I think they
you
did.
well, they did for about it was around 2005 for a box set. I remember that,
Yeah,
but they need to reissue them all and as a complete. I mean, they could, as far as I'm concerned, they could put back yesterday and today with the original Butcher Baby cover,
yeah,
and they could
yeah.
also release the U.S. version of the movie Help,
Right.
along with the original instrumental scores on it, because the scores on that album are pretty damn good as well. I enjoyed listening to those.
Well, actually, I
They
think
could
they
put
did that with Hard Day's Night too.
yeah, yeah, they could put out Not really. Yes, they did. That's right. And by the way, they should also release that album out as well. They could
Yeah,
release all the little things like the early Beatles or the Beatles stories, as well as also the Beatles 65, the Beatles second album. They need to reissue those albums,
right.
for to give a glimpse of the people today, because all we have is the UK versions, and but much as good as they are, the UK versions don't really come close to the US versions. I mean, like when you think about it, oh, the Beatles are, because the people need to know about particularly the instrumental scores on Hard Day's Night and the Help albums
Right,
there,
right.
US versions.
Yeah.
They need to be aware of that.
Well, we'll cover all that in our Beatles show.
Yeah, absolutely. Which will be this Thursday, I understand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to do that because man, I have a lot of memories in store when I first heard the Beatles when I was about 11 years old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's
Looking forward to doing that. All right, sir. So, do we have anything else left to cover here for this time moment here?
not really. There wasn't a lot to cover.
I know,
I
yeah, because
mean,
it was not that good of a period when it came to heavy hitting rock and roll. That's for sure. We had to deal with all these, soft rock kind of stuff, as they would put it.
well, the Beatles kind of kicked open the door for tons of people.
Absolutely, yeah. So we got to acknowledge them for that as well, which we will do this coming Thursday night.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So I think that's pretty much it for that right now.
Yeah, tomorrow night we're going to do our third run at Star Trek, the original series,
Yeah, part three.
and cover mainly the third season because we've already covered the first two.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And how many seasons were of Star Trek? Was about
Three.
3 or 4? Okay, so this will be
This will
the
be the last Star Trek, the original series.
okay, I see there. All right.
And then Friday we'll do the Godzilla franchise.
Absolutely. That's for sure as well.
So it
All
should
right.
be a fun week. Everybody tune in. And remember that Thursday we start at 5, not 6.
Yeah.
And every other night
Because of
we'll.
my because of my stint with Minnesota Vikings fan.
And we're going to try to start at 6 each night. And if we don't, it won't be much after that.
All right. All right. All right. So and also I also want to say a little. Do you want to say a little thing about the passing of Eddie Van Halen, the guitar legend?
Oh, wow. That, well, in a sense, it's just kind of brutal, but it happens to everybody. But oh gosh, that you hate to see it.
Yeah, no, I was like, I recorded a little stint with the YR, my old Metal Maniacs co-host there. Him and his couple of his friends, Old Man Davey and Keith Rabarber. We were on the call discussing our memories of Van Halen, how he influenced the guitar and
Oh yeah,
everything else. And also, yeah, I said this before. Fuck you, cancer. You took too many people from us, friends, relatives, musicians, actors, and everybody else.
yeah,
I know. I think we all agree that the big C can go suck a big one.
yeah, absolutely.
And
But anyways, we hope to see everybody the rest of the week.
okay.
And for the TV shows and the movies, give us some ideas in the comments. Although we got a pretty good bunch of ideas ourselves, but it would help to
Or
know.
Betty, no, sorry to interrupt. But Betty, you could give us ideas in our Skype if you want to, or
Right,
on our Twitter handles.
right. Just say, hey, I'd like to hear something about this. And on the movie one, we're basically looking at movies that were, in a sense, bad, but you couldn't turn away from them because they were interesting. A lot of the 50s and 60s sci-fi shows fall into that.
That's true there. All right. So, that'll be it for today. This is Arknolia and the Doctor, episode 8 of our music memories here. And you guys have a good one. And we will see you tomorrow night at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, where we take a look at the original Star Trek series here. All right?
All right, sounds good. We'll see everybody later.
All right. You guys have a good one. For Arknolia and myself, this is Arknolia and the Doctor. You cats have a good one.
All right.